TF was born in June 2020, right in the middle of the lockdown, when Professor Nikhila and Dr. Geeta Viswanath turned a spontaneous idea into a vibrant community of film enthusiasts, scholars, students, teachers, and movie buffs alike. Every Saturday at 9 p.m., we meet on Zoom to dive into films from across the world. It's simple. Someone picks a film, we all watch it during the week, and then come together for an open, insightful discussion just like now. Over the years, we have been fortunate to host filmmakers and artists like Aparna Sen, Amol Parikar, etc. We have explored cinema through diverse lenses and curating theme festivals on East European, Iranian, and women's cinema. Each June, to mark our anniversary, we host a student short film contest shot entirely on smartphones and a lecture series across universities. Most recently, in September, we held our first offline event, an international seminar on Indian cinema in the digital era, in collaboration with FCT Baroda. Today we have with us Mr. Jayan K, a visionary filmmaker from Kerala, whose cinematic voice transcends borders and genres. With an MFA in filmmaking from the City College of New York and a BA in film and creative writing from Hunter College, Mr. Cherian's work has resonated with audiences around the globe. His films have been screened at world-renowned festivals including the Berlin International Film Festival (BFI), London Lesbian Gay Film Festival, Rio de Janeiro International Film Festival, and many more. Among his acclaimed works are Papilio Buddha, The Shape of the Shapeless, and his most recent creation, the much anticipated Rhythm of Dammam, which we are going to discuss today. Alongside his filmmaking, Mr. Cherian has made valuable contributions to documentaries and short films, showcasing his dedication to diverse narratives and bold storytelling. We are equally delighted to welcome Ms. Madhurima Mukherjee, a promising academic currently pursuing her PhD in the Department of Translation Studies at the English and Foreign Languages University, Hyderabad. Her research deeply engages with the historical and cultural fabric of colonial Bengal, exploring nationalist discourses and evolving social science categories. I would like Ms. Madhurima to take over and discuss. Thank you.
Thank you, Muskan. I just want to share my PPT, so if you can.
Ananya, you can enable share screen.
I've allowed now.
Is it visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Yes, it's
Okay, all right. Yeah, so I will like to talk about my observations on the film Rhythms of Dammam. So first the introduction. So this is a film by Jayan Cherian that was released in 2024. So before getting into the discussion about the other aspects of the film, I will just provide a very brief synopsis of what the narrative deals with. So Rhythms of Dammam is a film that offers a window into the culture and lives of the Siddhi community in India, descendants of Africa's Bantu people brought centuries ago as slaves. Through the story of Jairam Siddhi, a young boy haunted by ancestral spirits, the film explores themes of identity, intergenerational trauma, and cultural survival. At the heart of the narrative is the traditional Dammam music, which serves as both a spiritual language and as a symbol of resilience for the Siddhis, blending social realism with the dreamlike meditative sequences. Rhythms of Dammam presents a search for identity for the Siddhi community in India. So, the narrative structure. The narrative of the film revolves around Jairam Siddhi's struggle to search for his identity and understand the history of his community. The narrative of this film shows a blend of both realism and imagination when portraying the present position of the Siddhi communities and also while constructing a past of the community through the imagination of Jairam. The film's attempt to present a past for the Siddhi community through the thoughts of Jairam demonstrates a juggling between different temporal spaces, which are signaled by difference in spatial location and also by accompaniment of particular music. The imaginative encounter with the past is signaled by the music and cries of the ancestors, signaling the tortures that they went through. Apart from the questions of the history of the community and their migration to India, the narrative also points out the contemporary position of the Siddhis in North Karnataka. The narrative presents the fight within Jairam's family over ancestral wealth. It also shows the exploitation of the Siddhis by the dominant classes and their economic struggles in the present situation. Yeah. So some of the symbols that I found interesting in the film, one is the picture of the slave trade. I have included the pictures as little bits, but I don't know if they're clearly visible or not. Yeah, so through this picture of the slave trade that one of Jairam's relatives had and that he later carries with him. So through this symbol, the narrative traces back the history of the Siddhi people and their collective memory. It highlights how the present people of the community still attempt to search for their past in different ways. And the box with the quote-unquote magic instruments, which the other members of the community, the older members, thought as invaluable, and which was kind of a door to Jairam to look for the past or to construct the imagination of the past. These serve as the instrument that helps Jairam to know about his community or imagine more about what happened. So the concept of collective memory that has been used here, it is, or that I am saying that it is being used here, the memory that is being shared by the Siddhi community, it is the shared pool of memories, knowledge, and information held by a social group that helps define the group's identity. It includes shared histories, experiences, cultural narratives, values, and traditions passed down and maintained through social interactions, storytelling, rituals, sometimes formal records. Collective memory shapes how groups remember their past and influences their sense of identity and social behavior. It can be held by small groups like families or schools, or larger groups like nations or communities, and may change over generations while helping members form a common perspective on their history and culture. In this film, the collective memory is presented through the depiction of how different people of the Siddhi community, people of different generations, how they refer to their origin and the story of their migration to India. And another interesting theme that underlies the film is the notion of intergenerational trauma. It refers to the trauma experienced by one generation that is transferred and felt by subsequent generations, even though they themselves have not experienced it physically or psychologically. But the psychologically, it is being present with the subsequent generations as well. So it means that the descendants of the people who went through traumatic events like war, slavery, genocide, systemic oppression, or abuse may experience psychological or physiological effects even if they did not experience the original trauma themselves. The film serves as a poignant exploration of collective memory and intergenerational trauma within the Siddhi community in India. Through the story of Jairam, a young boy haunted by the spirit of his late grandfather, the film showcases how the memories and histories of past generations continue to resonate and shape the present experiences. The narrative reveals how the trauma of slavery, caste oppression, and social marginalization is transmitted across generations. The next symbol that is very important and that is also present in the title, it is the Dammam, and another musical instrument, I don't know if I will pronounce it correctly, it is the Ghumut. So this film intertwines these themes with the cultural expression of Dammam music, which acts as a living vessel of the Siddhi's ancestral heritage and resilience. The music and rituals depicted are not only artistic elements but also crucial acts of remembering and reclaiming identity. They represent how collective memory is preserved and how intergenerational trauma is confronted through communal solidarity and spiritual practice. So by grounding its narrative in the lived reality of the Siddhis, Through immersive storytelling and performances, the film offers a powerful mediation on how history, memory, and trauma are interlinked, and how cultural practices like music can serve as pathways for healing and survival. So I will come back to the question of music later also in part of my presentation. So the next uh, symbol or theme we have is the caste question. So the film points out the position of Siddhi community in the present caste structure. The portrayal of how Jairam and his father sits in front of the landowner who provides them job and also lends them money, and how it shows a particular distance and how they have to sit on the ground. It shows the marginalized position of the community in the present social structure. And the other symbol is the symbol of quilt, that I have presented the picture here. One of Jairam's relatives, whose house they go, the woman is found as working on the quilt. So this presentation of the weaving of the quilt by one of the relatives of Jairam, it points out that the patchwork quilts, which are famous in the context of the Siddhi communities. So since this film deals with Siddhi community, I thought I will also give a brief introduction to the community itself and how the kind of researches that has been done on the community. So the name Siddhi is used overarchingly to refer to all sections of the Indian population who, though considered native to India by virtue of their long history in the subcontinent, ultimately have their origins in Africa. The origins of the appellation of Siddhi is not well known, but most conjecture that it means master and comes from the honorific Siddhi used in Arabic and Persian. One theory is that the word is derived from Sahibi, an Arabic term of respect in North Africa, similar to the word Sahib in modern India and Pakistan. A second theory is that the term Siddhi is derived from the title borne by the captains of the Arab vessels that first brought Siddhi settlers to India. These captains were known as Sayyid. A different name that is occasionally used for Siddhis is the term Habshi. While originally used to refer to people of Abyssinia, the term later became more broadly used to all the people from Africa who settled in India. And this term for Siddhis is held to be derived from the common name for the captains of Abyssinian ships that also delivered Siddhi slaves to the subcontinent. At present, the Siddhis in India can be found in parts of Gujarat, Hyderabad, and Karnataka. The scheduled tribe status to Siddhis was granted in 2003. So, looking back at the history of migration of the community, I read up some scholars who have worked on this field. And one of them, Abu Minda Yemene, in his article History of Indo-African Trade Relations and the Resulting Slave Trade, discusses that after the Islamic capital shifted from Syria to Iraq in 750 AD, the Persian Gulf came close to the Indian Ocean through trade networks. As a result, on the one side, trade networks between India and Africa expanded, and on the other side, the arrival of slaves to India also increased. The East African island towns functioned as an active marketplace for the Gujarati Muslims and Arabs to indulge in the purchase and sale of African slaves. Another scholar, Pashington Obeng, in his article Religion and Empire, notes that from the beginning of the Bahmani Empire in the Deccan, Africans, Habshis or Abyssinians, served as mercenaries fighting for or against various political and military powers. In 1672, Abbe Kerr, French author, came to Gujarat through Syria, Iraq, and the Persian Gulf, and in his historical documents, Kerr said that during the 17th century, India housed a large number of Africans who were part of a wide array of occupations like kings, slaves, eunuchs, guards, etc. Later on, other historians have traced the socio-historical origin of the African Indian community in India from diverse regions of Africa like Abyssinia, Nubian Valley, Portuguese East Africa, Somal, South African Republic, etc. The African Indian communities, also known now as Siddhis or Habshis, were involved in multiple professions. Besides being slaves, they worked as forest guards, mine workers, fishermen, textile workers, army leaders, etc. And many of the African slaves, because of their physical prowess and other skills, rose to the ranks of the kings. For instance, Malik Ambar, an African slave in the Deccan, led the foundation of the African kingdoms in Janjira and Sachin. And also in Bengal, between 1487 and 93, there was a Habshi kingdom for a short period of time. And it was with the arrival of the Portuguese colonizers in India, probably in the 17th century, that the African slaves in India were racially dehumanized and compartmentalized. As the Portuguese came to India, they brought with them African slaves from Mozambique, Eritrea, Somali, South Africa, which diversified the already existing population of Abyssinian slaves in the country. The Portuguese subjected the African slaves to severe states of existential inhumanity, as they did with the indigenous communities of other part of the world. As a result, many of the slaves escaped from the clutches of Portuguese and went to the forest regions of Goa, Maharashtra, Karnataka, and Gujarat. And this is probably how the Siddhi settlements in Karnataka came into existence. So this is the image of the Indian Ocean slave trade. So this shows the relationship between Africa, Arab, and India. And the other image also shows the directions in which the slave trade happened. Yeah. So some of the cultural aspects of the community that has also been talked about in the film. So I am using the term culture here for the lack of a better term that I know about. I am using it to refer to their particular customs, rituals, performing arts in that sense. So while the cities have adopted and integrated many cultural aspects of the Indian people with whom they have lived for generations, they have also retained, adapted, and transformed certain cultural and artistic traditions from Africa. Their performing arts are strong, especially certain music like drumming and song and dance traditions known as Goma or Dammam, and also the visual arts of the Karnataka Siddhis, one tradition that is also shown in this film, that is the patchwork quilts known as Kawandi. The lyrics and the performative methods of the Siddhi performative songs address both Indian sociocultural traditions and African ancestral traditions without assimilating the latter with the former. These exercises of sociocultural cohabitation, collaboration, and co-creation without assimilation function as significant tools of epistemic justice and cognitive freedom, where the cities resist their racial, social, cultural, political, economic marginalization, not through creating differences and conflicts, but through weaving interactive and discursive spaces of caring and sharing. The another important aspect of the Siddhi communities is the use of music or the musical practices. So I am referring to Brian Jackson's chapter of the Siddhi music. So the musical practices of this community with their unique use of instruments, it can also be used as a way to map out the histories, the neglected populations, subcultures, and their varied significances to larger concepts of nation and belonging. The musical practices also point out the relationships of exchange present in the Indian Ocean region. Another important aspect is situating the Siddhis in the question of religion. So the African Indians can be treated as important actors in the question of how they contributed to the complex and plural religious landscape of India. The existing literature on the Karnataka African Indians categorizes them into Muslims, Christians, and Hindus, thus defining them with reference to the features and symbols of quote-unquote great religions of the imperial regimes in India. However, this categorization overlooks the ways in which African Indians have appropriated local practices into their own versions of religiosity, as they have practiced faiths of their choice. The African Indians of Karnataka in South India, like their forebearers, have been forging relationships, redefining themselves, and articulating their agency by drawing on Indian and African religious cultural sources. So among the Karnataka African Indians are found Muslims who trace their history to the Bijapur kingdom founded in 1490 when the Omani Arab slave traders sold their forebears to serve as dock workers, domestic guards of Muslim leaders. Christians who trace their route to Goa, Destaduda, India, which was ruled by the Portuguese, and Hindus whose ancestors were sold by Arabs, Indian merchants, and Portuguese to the Brahmins in exchange for local products. Yeah. So in this film also, the question of religion comes up as we see that many of the pictures of the gods and goddesses where the figure of Jairam's grandfather is also kept. It shows that probably they practice what we call now as quote unquote Hindu religion. And also there is an instance in the film where they go um, to the Pir Baba or something like that. And they say something about how to get rid of the spirit so that Jairam gets better. So yeah, the next point is the use of the sound and music in the film. So the movie uses the performance of Dammam both in the beginning and in the end. It is through the Dammam performance in the end that Jairam seems to engage with the question of Africanness in his identity. After various scenes of imagination of the past of the Siddhi community and his urge to know more about his ancestors and understand his identity, Jairam, in the end of the film, is seen to be immersed in the performance of the Dhammam, probably suggesting that he has come to accept the various mosaic aspects of the Siddhi identity, its past and its present situation in the Indian scenario. And the movie also begins and ends with the same note of music. I don't know what the music is called, but when the movie gives the forest, starts with the forest region of Karnataka, it starts with a particular music. And also in the end, when the credits are showing, it is the same music that continues. And it's also interesting to see how the younger generation tries to construct the narrative of their history through rap songs. So it shows the adaptation of new forms to retell the stories of the communities. Also, this song questions the name Siddhi that is given to the community. Like there is a sentence in the song in translation that says, "What does Siddhi even mean?" A point that I will come back to in the end of my presentation. So the other important point is cinematography. Now, I'm not really good at understanding this aspect, so I will just point out what I have understood, and maybe later someone else can point out more about it. So there are uses of specific sounds and cries when the director tries to talk about forced migration and the tortures without talking explicitly about it in all the aspects. And the music when Jairam opens up the magic box, the quote unquote magic box, suggests a kind of entry to another space. And there are observational long texts like to show the customs of the community and their Dhammam performances. And the Dhammam musical sequences are also not staged and choreographed. It's more like uh, the performance that people do naturally without any inhibition. So, and the other is how the cinematography changes in the context of the dream and imaginary sequences. So there will be certain kind of music or other kind of indications to help us know how the spatio-temporal shift happens. Yeah. The other important point that I found interesting is the language spaces that are shown in the movie. So it highlights the issue of the different language spaces that the Siddhis have to inhabit. So while they use a variant of Konkani in their conversations with the community people, the school space and the space of the hospital shows the dominance of Kannada language. And the film also demonstrates the use of Sanskrit in the hostel where Siddhi ships for a short, where Jairam ships for a short period of time. Yeah. So just one thing I wanted to show is the location of the Siddhi tribe in Karnataka. This and this. Yeah. So the point that I talked about is the like I will briefly focus on how the Siddhis were categorized in the census. And it is related to the question that the rap song artist takes up, like what does Siddhi even mean? So in order to understand how the categorization Siddhi come up, I thought I would include how the colonial census categorized this community in different ways. So I will briefly focus on the ways in which Siddhi community were listed and categorized in the colonial census. Since the film also mentioned the issue of the term quote unquote Siddhi given to this community, it will be important to look into the colonial census because it was one of the important apparatuses in forming the identities of different communities. So I have referred to this article, The Siddhi Badshah of Western India, The Politics of Naming, 2015, by Amrita Shodhan. To understand the politics and categorization of the Siddhi community in the census, the article mostly talks about the community in Gujarat, with specific reference to Gujarat, but it also has certain mentions of the community in Karnataka and in Andhra. So she mentions that the Junagadh census of 1882 does not mention the community Siddhi and the tribes or aborigines. There is no separate listing of Siddhis under forest dwellers either. Sashan was a town in the Gir forest. Gir forest is in Gujarat, with a considerable Siddhi population. This town Sashan was discussed in the census, but the Siddhis were not mentioned at all, nor was the village of Jambu. And the Gazetteer of 1880 describes the Nawab of Sachin and the history of the Nawab's family, but there was no information about the ordinary Siddhis. The categories that was used for the population of the district were religious, like Hindus, Muslims, and various Hindu castes. And in the 1891 census, we first find the racial listing of the population. Under the non-Asiatic races are two groups, Europeans and Africans. Under Africans, several groups were listed, Abyssinian African, Egyptian, Habshi, or Siddhi, and Somali. The Habshi were listed as residing in the areas of Karnataka and Konkan, the latter lying on the western littoral of the modern states of Kerala, Karnataka, and Maharashtra. And the Gazetteer of Bombay Presidency of 1899 describes Siddhis as foreign Muslims. The text of the Gazetteer suggested that the Africans in India were from different tribes, chiefly from the Somali coast. In the 1901 census category of African, the census category of African completely disappeared, and a single category variously titled Habshi or Siddhi appeared under Muslim castes and tribes. The largest number in this group was again in northern Bombay province. The 1911 Baroda report only mentioned Siddhi in the glossary as inhabiting districts in Saurashtra. An emphasis on Somali origins and dialect for the Siddhis in the Amreli district appeared in the 1899 Bombay Gazetteers. So if we see the colonial census, there are various ways in which these communities were categorized. And one of the ways it was done in the 1901 census is the Hapshi or Siddhi. That is what is perhaps continued till then, after that. Yeah. And another thing that I found while working on this film, in order to understand the film better, I did a number of other things. So I thought I would just mention this thing, although this is not really related to the film. So there is this interesting photography book by Ketaki Sheth, A Certain Grace, The Siddhi Indians of African Descent, that was published in 2013. So this presents black and white portraits and streetscapes from the everyday lives of the community people living in Gujarat, Karnataka, Mumbai, and Hyderabad during the time period of 2006 and 11. So I included certain photographs that I could find on the internet. Yeah. So just summing up, I think I have digressed a lot from the main film discussion. So I will just end on a note about what I liked in the film. So this is in reference to the Scroll article about how the first feature film on the Siddhi community was made. So it discusses how this is the first feature film regarding this community. And it talks about the existing research on anthropological studies of the community or the ethnomusicological scholarship on their performing traditions, and also a few documentaries that have been made on this community. Now, my question is, how does this genre of feature film contribute to the narrative of the past or constructing the history of Siddhi communities? And how is it different from the documentaries genre? So, this fictional narrative of the Siddhi community, what I understood, it foregrounds how the members of the community they themselves attempt to reconstruct their past. So one of the interesting things about this narrative is that it does not lay any claim to the notion of truth or objectivity to the construction of history. So this narrative becomes more about a journey about searching for Jairam's identity and his construction or imagination of the past of his community in a way that is more related to individual or community dealings with his or their past rather than being an academic exercise of constituting the quote unquote objective narrative history. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madhurima ma'am. I would like Mr. Jayan sir to join in the conversation to further the discussion on the film.
Hello. Okay. Hello. Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can, Jayan. Go
Okay.
on.
Yeah.
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 So, thank you, Madhurima. She went very comprehensively through the history and a nice presentation. Thank you very much. You have any questions? I can.
I had
Anybody
a
up for the
question.
discussion?
Can I speak?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, of course.
So I had a question that I read in that Scroll article where you had talked about that you took around 8 years to make the film, and you also lived with the communities to make the film. So I wanted to know, why did you take the venture to make this film about this particular community? And if you can share other experiences about the making of the film as well.
Oh, thank you. So I've been living there. I remember that I've been joined this particular group from there. Geeta, you remember you was asking me to
Yes,
join
yes,
and why you
yes.
are what you are doing. That was in 2018 or something, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So my last film when I finished 2016, since I have this project was in my mind. Since then I was traveling to Elapur and contacting communities there, back and forth. But after 2018, I rent a place in Elapur and start to stay there. And then the COVID come, and I've been trapped in there and to come back to New York and get the shots and go back. And until 2023, we finished the film. I stay there. But initially, how I come to as you actually to the subject, that was the question, right? Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what she wants to ask.
Yeah. That actually, I've been researching about Indian Ocean slave trade uh, during my graduate and undergraduate years in New York. I went to school in Harlem and in City University. Uh, my focus was the Indian Ocean slave trade, the pre endangered servitude, and pre 1835. how the people transported and cargoed and trafficked into South America, Africa, Suriname. At the same time, you can see in Mauritius and in various African and Latin American countries, Americas and Africas. That was the major thing. Then you can see that word that the world of Amitabh Ghosh novels is later dealing with endangered servitude. But the Sri Lankan writer, you probably know, Ramesh Gunashekhara, his work, Prisoner of Paradise, was dealing with the pre-endangered servitude, the actually the slavery of that time from India, a flow to Africas and Americas. Even North America have Indian slaves, and of course Europe. And my research was going that way. Then I stumbled on another kind of slave trade with the several articles. African presence in India was kind of generally ignored. We never taught in the schools, as you rightly mentioned. Uh, One thing actually is forced me, the African American uh, activist and historian who passed away, Runako Rashidi. As I was a student in my 20s, and as an undergraduate student, I used to meet him in the parks in New York City, and he was confronting uh, with me. Sometimes there is showing the photographs of African presence in India. He has a larger theory that is entire this binary colonial divide of Aryan, Dravidian, and Dravidian peoples are directly connected to Africa. That's kind of very ancient theory, but Brother Runako Rashidi was later come to India and visited all these villages, especially in cities, and also he went to Egypt and South Africa, not to South Africa, Egypt and Iran, certain part of Iran. He found African. Not only he found, he was interacted with the later African diaspora in that region. So his travel blogs also initiated my initial curiosity on the trans-Indian Ocean slave trade. That is in about 30 years ago, not now. It is in early 90s. And later, as you mentioned, Reverend Dr. Pashington Abangi, you mentioned his book. Pashington Abangi was a professor teaching in Harvard. Also, he was teaching in Madison, at Madison. Now he's retired. He went back to Ghana. Um, and his articles also, he visited these villages later in 2000s. And this triggered me to initiate to my research on this field. But later, I invent sort of colossal figures of the African presence in India, like Jalaluddin Yaqut. You know that Jalaluddin Yaqut is the commander of Russia Sultana, the first female uh, ruler in Delhi Sultanate. And also encountered several references of the Habshi slave girls, where you read it like the travels of Ibn Battuta, the Moroccan traveler. Uh, he praised the sex slaves provided by Alauddin Khilji to him, and he's also referring to the slave ships of not the slave ships, actually the trade ships which run by Siddhis. If Siddhis are there, pirates never go there. And also, that before the colonial time, there is several reference of it. And we never teach that in the schools. And also when we come to the later, as you rightly mentioned, the Habshi Sultanate and also the Khilji time, one of the very um, prominent and powerful, the Malik Kafur. Malik Kafur was a slave. Malik Kafur was a transgender slave. and he was a sex slave and of Alauddin Khilji. Became that after the later days of Alauddin Khilji, that Malik Kafur was in rule. Really, he was kind of extraordinary warrior and a poet and a dancer and everything. He was African. He was a Habshi. Uh, and later, that kind of figures are in the history. Then we come to the central figure of the boy called Chapu, born in Ethiopia, who sold in uh, several slave markets, including Baghdad. Later, Malik Dabare, of the prime minister of the Chapu Sultanate, he is also Habshi nobleman. He bought him to Gujarat, to Ahmednagar, later became Malik Amber. And this Malik Amber was 3 times sold before he reached to uh, Malik Dabare, who is the prime minister of Bijapur. And uh, Malik Amber was very extraordinary figure. And Malik Dabare, he's this Habshi nobleman of the prime minister of Bijapur then. Um, he was mm, actually, um, his other name was Genghis Khan. He was also known as Genghis Khan, not the historical Genghis Khan. And these people are not really slaves. They were mercenaries. But Malik Amber came to India as a slave of another Habshi nobleman, who is the prime minister at that time in Bijapur Sultanate. He came to Ahmednagar. And later, Ahmednagar, uh, um, he climbed the ladders and he kind of became huge figure um, by the sponsorship of Chand Bibi of Ahmednagar. And as you know, later Malik Amber became the general, and he have his own army, his own 8,000 mounted soldiers. And they are not working for a country or a powerhouse like a which they are switching sides. They are mercenaries. And this private mercenary army run by Malik Amber became very powerful. It's a nightmare of Mughals. And he defeated Mughal several times, and his notorious painting of Aurangzeb's, no, Jahangir's um, uh, court was the Malik Amber's head is being shot by Aurangzeb. That Jahangir, that is his fantasy, is never accomplished. That they're painting in London right now, I think. And actually, Malik Amber was a nightmarish presence in Deccan for Mughals. Later, he not only a warrior, not only a ruler, and he has a kind of a lot of administrative um, innovations he did to Ahmednagar, and his daughter was married to Bijapur Sultan, and also there is a lot of stories. You can see that Ali Omar's book, the Trans-Indian Ocean Slave Trade and the Power of Malik Amber. There's a huge book published by Oxford. It's not the exact title, I forget it. But you will Google it and you'll get it. And also there is a historical several reference. But this kind of stories I never encountered in India when I was studying in India. And also later, the colossal Janjira Island. Janjira Island is itself, you mentioned Sachin, Nawabs of Sachin. That is also royalties of African presence in India. Janjira Island was later became the capital of the Janjira Nawabs. And they never been defeated by anybody, even Mughals, English, and Dutch, Portuguese, and several forces, colonial forces, attempted to conquer Janjira, never conquered until 1949. Janjira dissolved to Indian Union with Nehru's union, and as essentially any princely state, and they get the pension and they're dissolved. That's the other side of the, and also you can see that the Hyderabad Nizam was recruited several. Um, they have Nizam had a, I mean, mercenary army, Siddhi wing, and also. As you mentioned before, that the Bijapur Sultan slaves became Muslims, and the governors, the sugarcane Christian merchant slaves became Christians, and the Hindu headdais and hebbars owned these large slaves. They became Hindu. Actually, that is not that simple at all. Actually, that's very, very oversimplification. I traced several cases of the same family same person have different um, slave names, different names, but all are slave names, which is have belongs to any religion. Like there is a Portuguese. A slave called Kasim was sold into mm, uh, Bijapur Sultan, and his name is Kasim. Kasim sold to um, a sugarcane merchant, sugarcane farmer in Goa. He became Bastu, the same person. And that person was later re-enslaved by a Hebar, and his name became Ganapati. That kind of stories are there, and also this Hindu, Christian, Muslims are cousins. Several people still the intermarriage was going on, and it's very complex. Contemporary situation is totally changed. Before I go there, and all these rich histories are existed. I stumbled upon these articles and started to research about it, and there is an international movement to connect African diaspora around the world, and the Asian African diaspora NGO is existing, and also the global African diaspora. These connections are going back and forth, and the connecting bridge became several scholars come to India. And went to Pakistan. There is Siddhis in Sindh, and Siddhis in Bangladesh, and Siddhis in Sri Lanka. And general African diaspora in Asia getting connected with several intellectual and academic channels through NGOs too. So when I start to think about to research about this is the initial spark of this Professor Rabanki and Ronak Rashidi, that kind of that the scholars initially spark um, my curiosity in this area. But later I got connected with the community, and I went to this village, and with one of my friends from Mangalore, Pradeep Shetty, and you all, Geeta probably know him, and we traveled early, um, you know, just 2016 or 17, and met Shantaram Siddhi from the community, who is MLC right now. And then several of our friends there, Mohan Siddhi, Jairam Siddhi, and several friends, I get in touch, and I visited their villages and start to record these people's conversations and elder stories, the oral history, and that I initiated into the world. Just and these stories and these diaspora stories are part of my existence too, and I slowly walk into the collective imagination of that community with several ways, through interactions, through living with them.
Thank
I
you.
think I went too far.
Can I come in, Muskan?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
The platform is open for discussion now.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Madhurima, for that elaborate, context of the narrative of the film and the analysis. And thank you so much, Jayan, for giving us access to your film and for also agreeing to come and attend this Zoom session. Yeah, I loved the film, no doubt about that. And what really interested me was the way you made you gave centrality to the child. And I was thinking of Tarkovsky's Ivan's childhood, like how in that film also it is the child who is the bearer of memory. And here also you have this Jairam Siddhi, who through this process of ritual and possession and all that, is the bearer of the ancestral memory of the community, and also the bearer of identity. It's almost like he embodies that identity, especially towards the end. He's painting his face and playing that damam. And by ending the film with that elaborate song and dance sequence, which was I thought very beautifully done. It was a very documentary, I would say, in a positive way, in the sense that uh, the camera was very unobtrusive. It was as if the audience was just drawn into it, as if it was a live performance, and we as spectators were there watching it. So that was a very nice quality that you gave to that end song and dance sequence. And there I thought you were trying to say that it is this kind of ritual and music and dance which is the real identity that binds this community together, rather than imposed social hierarchies like caste, which is something that is imposed on this community. And also the way you foreground those close up shots of that woman grinding those medicinal herbs and all that is you're trying to say that these are very valuable knowledge systems, which is there as part of this tribal heritage of this community. So these are some of the things that I really liked about the film. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Um, Yeah, if I may come in, first of all, thanks, Madhurima, for doing such a wonderful overview and really doing a great review of literature, contextualizing this film for us. Particularly since many of us know so little about the community, and my only point of reference is Prashant Siddhi, whom I've seen in numerous Kannada films. So it was important to give us a sense of their history, and which is a very long kind of a history. And thanks, Jayan, for giving TFO access to this film so that we could all watch this film and have you over with us for this conversation. I had two responses. I don't know, I may differ slightly in my view from what has been said so far. To me, Jairam's dreams, the sheer terror that these dreams evoke, and they're all very violent kind of dreams. That immediately starts after an episode of narration. Someone tells him a story of their past, and then he's kind of, his overwrought mind is creating scenes out of that. So it seemed like the film is trying to, or at least as the narrative unfolds, there is a certain kind of burden of the past that has to be, in some ways, shed and the moment embraced. The last sequence that that Geeta was talking about, I thought was a kind of embracing the present and kind of outgrowing the past in some way, because I don't know, I'm not so sure about going from the tone of your film. I don't see it as being celebratory. There is more a kind of documenting many aspects. For instance, the god, the sequence where the woman has God upon her, or the sequence about the herbs that are. So I thought you are documenting it without valorizing it. And I thought that, like there are so many things that are tried out for Jairam. The medicine, the visit to the peer, the place of the peer to cure him, even sending him to a school where they hope that his exposure to Sanskrit and a certain kind of a schooling system will cure him of this. So clearly, it is a past that has to be, or an identity that has to be lived through, but also shed. Um, I felt so that he embraces the present more rather than kind of. So it looked like the ocularizations of this child and of the past seemed more like a burden than an identity that he was somehow hankering after or willing to embrace for me. So I think it's a more complex and ambiguous relation to the past, and more traumatic. Yes, I can see, agree with what Madhurima was saying about intergenerational trauma and the way it kind of plays out, for Jairam. So that is one sense. And I thought those sequences really take you through such a painful aspect. There are so many other painful and violent aspects in the film, including the two brothers fighting after their father is dead. Their brawl, they're looking for some imaginary treasure. I mean, so there are different kinds of madnesses within courts at work there, and all these are responses to probably the milieu that they kind of inhabit, and the way they have to negotiate with their marginalized identity. The second aspect that I liked, not that I liked, that set me thinking, is this idea that the Siddhis are a tribe. So Geeta and I are also writing a little bit about tribes and those who are called as Adivasis or indigenous people. So this is a very different kind of tribe, which you cannot say, okay, these are forest dwellers, these are Adivasis, these are clearly from elsewhere. So it just set me thinking. I mean, it's somewhat tangential to the film, but it set me thinking on how this modern category of the tribe has been conceptualized in the Indian context. On the one hand, you want to call them Vanavasi or Adivasi, but clearly the Siddhis are not a tribe in this, in any of this sense, given their origins elsewhere. So something that Geeta and I probably have to research a little bit more on. Yeah, so these were the two responses. Thank
Yeah.
you once again. Yeah. Yes.
That's very, very good question. Actually, that Geeta and even Madhurima, Nikhila, and talking, I have a lot of things to tell about the history that which I learned through my history, my living with them, also my academic research, which is the rightly you bring that the tribal thing. Actually, there is the history of Siddhis, African diaspora in India, in various places, it varies. In particularly, the history of the people in Konkan region who is escaped Portuguese slavery from Goa are significantly different from the people in the Gir forest. And they have more connection with Africa. And this is a particular diaspora, uh, indigenously, I mean, natively Hindu tribe, the Hindu community. I don't want to use that word tribe. Actually, that is not a tribe. And I have to explain that the the peculiar episode of this post-industrial revolution, slavery, and Goa and the Konkan people. If I try to say people start to talk about the slave trade with the Sopora, the current Nalla Sopara, is the place in the Kutch area, the Sindh area, if it is going to be complex. And it is these communities and populations are totally different. And recent studies in 2018 and 16, several papers are published on the genome studies of the particular community that connect with them, the Bandhu people. What is Bandhus? Bandhus are not a homogeneous tribe. Bandhus people are spread around several um, uh, nations of Africa right now. If I get a Xhosa is a Bandhu at the same time Zulus are Chief Buthelezi, Sinkatha Freedom Party's Chief Buthelezi is Bandhu. And they are settled and nomadic and very diverse. It is not a monolithic tribe uh, in Africa. It is a linguistic and ethnic groups, is ethnic and linguistic umbrella. It's scattered in 15 or 16 African countries. And the Portuguese slave trade, uh, uh, particularly this Portuguese Arab slave trade to Konkan region, to Goa, uh, that people are trafficked. They're not settled people. That is, they're not migrants. They're trafficked from Mozambique port from uh, late 15th, 16th, and 17th and 18th century. And I'm not talking about the mercenaries, or I am talking about the elite poet and merchants who is have very rich, later became royalties in India. I'm talking about the charter slaves. Um, in 16th and 17th centuries, the slave trade was very much flourished all over in India. British, Dutch, and all these people are doing. Since the Vasco da Gama landed in 1498 in Calicut, by 1510, Portuguese became their central place. Even that means pre-colonial India doesn't have slavery. Yes, there is 6th century uh, slave trades happens, and even the Habshi land, the Ethiopia and India have a close relationships. Even we go to the Mohenjo-daro and Harappan civilization, we found pearl millets there, which was really grained and tamed in Ethiopia. The Horn of Africa have huge relationship with India. I'm just forget about that. Come back to this and how these people they are from the various countries of Africa, regions of Africa. The slave catchers, the ground slave catchers, usually the Arabs. They were historically slave catchers. So they catch people and bring to Mozambique port. From there, the ships are filled and that cargo went to transatlantic, trans-Indian Ocean. And this cargo, the go to Americas and to India and Europe all over. This was controlled by this larger scale ships was controlled by uh, the colonial slave traders. And before that, there is a small ships, even from India, go to Africa filled with cotton and come back with a small urus. They call urus, like 30 or 25 people, come back with the field with this small group of slaves. It was the ancient barter system. We had it before, and Indian people, we cannot blame everything on the slave, colonial slave masters. We are also slave traders. We were also slave traders, and also the pirates based in Yemen was usually attacking these slave ships and and steal the slaves, and that pirates are Arab pirates. And one of the Yemeni parampara of the family of the pirates were settled in Kerala. They were also the same as I mentioned before. Malik Baber and Malik Amber became mercenaries, and the mercenary soldiers under them, they became huge figures and powers in Deccan, the same as in the ocean, in Arabian Ocean and Indian Ocean. There is pirates based in Yemen that settled in Kerala. Later, there is 3, 4 pirate parampara called Kunyali Maraka. Kunyali Marakas, and Kunyali Marakar is one pirate and chief of him, and he was hired once in Samudri. At the same time, he was hired uh, in Kadingalur and Kollam, and also hired back, and they're backstabbing each other. They became arch enemies of Portuguese. They usually attack Portuguese ships and steal slaves and sell back. This was happening, and there is later, there is even mainstream films in Kerala make this Kunyali Marakar figure is kind of a soldier figure and became captain of navy of Calicut Samurin. That is totally unfounded. Only the snippets of imagination of mainstream commercial filmmakers. They later made films. So they are pirates. And they are independent people. They are hired hands by the local landlords and rulers, like including Samuris in Kollam, kings and Kodungalur people in Kochi, Travancore area. But I come back to this. Hello. This particular
Yes, yes.
Portuguese governed slaves get a chance to escape to British India. You can see 1835 British Queen abolished slavery in India. But Portuguese Goa was really, slave trade was uh, really going on. It is flourishing. Everybody go there and buy slaves. You know what is, then one historical event happened. You can see Goan Inquisition. The local Brahmins first became Christians there, not only Brahmins, the rich people, that especially Gauda Sarasadas, they have to flee from Goan attack, and they end up in Mangalore, and even they end up in Kochi. But there is a cunning, tactful GSBs became Catholics. And just to become Catholics, they are not fully converted to Catholicism. They secretly practice Hindu traditions. So the Catholic leaders, Catholic priests, and they're all missionaries, and all these people find this out, and they started an inquisition. They set up an inquisition court in order to punish these heretics, these pagan worshippers. So that Inquisition time, you can see if the newly converted Hindu Christians are being punished severely. If you Google Roman Inquisition, you can see the atrocities and the pain they inflict upon Christians, the newly converted Christians. At the same time, all the Christians of in Kerala, you can the Udaipur Synod and the Crooked Cross movement and everything against the Portuguese people. From even the Christians from Kerala, the Jadi Nasranis of Kerala did in during that time. So there's one condition of that at the time when the people found practicing this. So quote unquote pagan practices or Hindu rituals, they go to trial, and most of the time after the trial they get staked, and they went all kind of punishments, but they will strip these rich people of their property, and the slaves are the major property. So at the same time, in that time, several landlords, slaveholders, forced to free their slaves, or the slaves get a chance to run away. That time, you can see the British India, these slaves are escaped into nearby forest, which is Konkan forest, and started their own commune and clear the land, and they start to live inside the forest because that region was kind of filled with the black panthers and king cobras that time. But now the black panthers are extinct from that. No, that is also filtered later into their worships and their godly figures and everything. That's later. But the next event happened, Govan plague. During the Govan plague, the several slave dens are unattended. Then that exacerbate the people to escape to the next forest area. And later you can see 1835, the British India abolished slavery. On that time also, officially the slaves are freed, but the slave trade being going on. Hyderabad Nizam conscripted, that quote unquote conscripted a lot of cities into his army. Really, he bought. Then you can see Bijapur Sultan is also bought a lot of slaves, and these slaveholders are selling off their slaves. Actually, they say they're freeing them, but they're not freeing them. These people are really selling them. But inside this forest, the same as all formerly enslaved communities happen in Brazil. You can see in Amazon forest, there's a free communes of runaway slaves. Same as in North America, they're called maroons, the maroon republics, even in the deep forest. They have their own communes, just to call republic, but their own communes, and they resisted against the outside, and they run away. They create their own land, their own way of surviving inside the forest, which has happened in Brazil, in North America, in Jamaica, even in Haiti. Haiti was even 70s, 1870s became republic. That's another thing. But I come back to here. This is harder. Runaway slaves created their own commune in Konkan forest. But one unfortunate thing happened to them. These people are not in the part of the traditional the caste system or anything. They're not part of anything. But now you use another word, Vanavasi. Who is the forest dweller in that region? Their forest dwellers are Butts, forest dwellers are Prabhus, forest dwellers are Hegdes and Hebbars. This North Uttara Kannada district is a big agrahara, and all this kind of the Brahmin landlords who owns thousands of acres within in the forest. They are the Vanavasi. Still, you can see the forest dwellers they are the only one have the land there. And what happened, this Hegdes and Hebbars and all these upper caste people, not only the Hindus, the Christian and Muslim landlords also, the powerful people, especially in this case, is the Brahmin landlords found these people and taming the wild forest and making it arable land because of the traditional provisions of as agrarian slaves. So and these people, what they do, they grab their land and move them to some other place. They clear the forest and and grab that land, and these people are really started to re-enslave there. After the slavery ended, these runaway slaves being re-enslaved by the Uttara Kannada landlords. There's another layer to come. And then you can see, respectively, these new landlords also forced their religion upon them. That religious rituals and the gods and goddesses and names, Ramas and Ganapatis and Jairams and Subhadras and Devagis and Yashodas walking around there is also part of a new re-enslavement. They're found to be re-ensnared into a millennium-old caste system as the lowest part of the hierarchy. And then this processing is still continuing. By this time, is India became independent. I mean, you can see in 1940s, even the other world of the cities and other diasporas is gone. In this particular area, still these Hegdes and Hebbars are transferring people with their lands. And these poor people clear the lands, the wild forest land, even not even their own. Later, they figure out they don't have any claim. Then we come to in 1950s, 60s, and 70s, even 60s, a forest rule there. You can see that I went to this archives. Then I found out Siddhi people can only live in certain forest areas. In Yellapur Taluk, in Noida, Yellapur, Angola. In these taluks, in certain forest regions where the Brahmins have the lands. I mean, their existence is connected with this land. And they cannot even go anywhere. And there is even, the only cities come to Yellapur town is only that Sunday market day. And the day before they come from Kalesa, Jamshetikupa or Jagadangupa. There's an inner side, miles of miles to walk. There is no bus or anything. But still there is no bus going in. And still you can see that who own these lands. They are bound to their master's land and master's religion. And whether it is Christian, whether it is Hindu, whether it is Muslims, doesn't matter. And right now you can see the Christian community is under the yoke of this Govan Catholic missionary. And also there's new evangelists penetrate there, and they're converting, and they're making their own conclaves inside their own enclaves. And at the same time, you can see the traditional Muslims that since they intermarry, the Muslim community, if the Hindu and Muslims are even the same family, people marrying each other, and everything was going on until 1980s or 90s. Now you can see that in 90s, one of the Siddhi from Haliyal he went to Saudi Arabia, and he had a connection with the Salafis. And he come back and spread another kind of Islam. There's a new Salafi movement within the Islamic group. And they started to limit people to marry other community, ban them, and to practice Hirayaru. The Hirayaru is not a Hindu Hirayaru. The Bandhu people's tradition is totally different. The African ancestor worship is totally different, where the Ngoma dancing connecting directly to Bandhu people, and the Dammam music and the dance have its root, and it has its own specific reasons. I have very limited time to explain. This is a huge 1 semester or 2 semester course. I can go everywhere, but I'm just to give you the snippets. But in the film, you can see that. Uh, all the rituals, all the gods and goddesses, and this Kalesa, the school I showed, the one Brahmin teacher school still exists. I went there, and I didn't create that. The first time I went to school, there is no desk or bench. And even 2-3 years, people struggle and get the desk and bench, and the new school we shoot later. I didn't show the old school at all. I have still photographs of the old school. And the schooling also the part of this enculturation. This is the part of the cultural erasure and also rewriting the culture, the language, and also the religion, the rituals, everything. This everything is became a tool. And also the Vanavasi Kalyan, the hostel, you see that the volunteers of Vanavasi Kalyan, the biggest leaders of the community coming out of the Vanavasi Kalyan movement. And current MLC Shantaram Siddhi, when I first met him in 90, even years ago, he was not MLC. He was the Vanavasi Kalyan activist, and he was really Akhila Karnataka Vanavasi Kalyan, uh, uh, one of the central figure of the that organization. I forget his title, exact title that time. Later, he was nominated by um, uh, uh, to as MLC, and he became the first non-Brahmin representatives in that region. That's one aspect. Uh, and this pledge in the Canada's pledge you see in the school, that is also a tool of cultural erasure and rewriting. And you can see that the Ganagida, what you see it in the Vanavasi Kalyan hostel, also another kind of erasure. And also the central community shaman, the Gundaya Siddhi, acting as himself, the rituals he's doing also another erasure. And the Pir Baba, that Fakir Saab in Kandalgari, and we shot his own dargah, and the Muslim tradition. Uh, that is also, it has its own part, uh, is playing its own part as a tool of oppression. And you can see the Salafi tradition and even Tablighi Muslim. I met a community, the beautiful a community in Bhagavati near Calicut, Kalagadi, that region. There's a group of Tablighi Siddhi Muslims too. And every fringe groups right now in India and their subgroups and subsects have their own foot in this particular community. And this is kind of very multifaceted way. What is originally there, the people captured and trafficked into this is particularly in the colonial chattel slavery, and erased their memory, their culture, and as a community, they're totally disintegrated. They are victims of cultural genocide. Right now, there's a new movement within the community trying to become a community. And that effort was started in 1980s by Lawrence Sidhi, and who was one of the prominent um, farmer within the Sidhi community. He became Jilla Panchayat president from that Congress ticket in 1980s. And there is another community in the Bennett city. He was also a Christian priest, and also Muhammad Sidhi, Muhammad Sahib Sidhi is a Hindu uh, mm, Muslim medicine man and shaman within the Muslim Siddhi community. This all people started, and also Putta Siddhi from Galeshwara in that area. These people started a movement called Akhila Karnataka Siddhi Samaj, and the movement became prominent in 1980s. And later, I don't know the timeline of Margaret Alva became the MP of the region. She was pushing, she was Lawrence Sidhi himself and all these people are working for her, and she was pushing the buttons in all over India. And by the time the other part of Siddhi community in India trying to get a some kind of recognition. Until this time in 90s, the Siddhi community is considered not even as a human according to Indian Constitution. They don't even consider us human beings or individuals or citizens. until 2003. 2003, in particular, people who lived in, because all this effort happened, the Akhila Karnataka Siddhi movement and this Margaret Alva lobbying and all these people's push, the result was happened in 2003. The city people in Karnataka, especially who lives in Aliyar, Yellapur, Joida, and Angola, these taluks declared as tribals. Then your tribe come there. The first time tribe existed, the word tribe interject or insert itself into that community in 2003. So that the tribe things is that, I just, in order to prove that, I had to tell this whole history. And another thing, the same treacherous element in that law, even the tribal thing, the tribe status, ST status. Not all cities in Karnataka don't have this tribal status. This tribal status, only these people get who live in these three taluks. A city who is in Yellapur don't want to live there, or Yellapur city is a small place. Nobody have land it there. Only landlords and upper caste people have land there. Nobody own the land. The land is inside the forest, which was thousands of acres by Vanavasi, the forest dwellers, who is the Brahmins. And this property, these people are even the trafficked, enslaved property, part of their land, who lives there. Get ST status, who insist themselves or who live in that particular taluks. This person abandon his community and go to Bangalore, or even go to Hooghly, sit in the metro city or some other place. They lose the status. They will lose the status. Same provision you see 1960s or the Forest Division Acts in Yellapur or in Karnataka Forest Act, you can see that the particular people can only live in that forest because there is thousands of Vanavasi people who are forest dwellers, have their areca plantations there, their sugarcane plantations there. So they want to add to the labor pool of these people and make sure that enslavements are there. Even the new tribe act, how this people became tribe is kind of very funny. And this tribal act, ST act, also limit their thing. And another layer also I want to add, according to 2006, the Forest Rights Act, this people, now they became 2003. This three taluks people became Siddhi people became tribes, ST. Then they have a right to have 4.5 acres of the land, according to the 2006 Forest Rights Acts. So you can see this all lands. People fought. The only one or two people got that land, because one is Lawrence Siddhi, I know, because he is one of the powerful farmer from earlier time. Majority of the people, none of this major Siddhi community didn't get a piece of land. None of them. But when later the first lawyer in the community, Jayan Siddhi, my friend, who is practicing in High Court in Bangalore, and he went through these all documents. We were sitting in Mohan Siddhi, who is also part of my production. We were also going through these documents, and we find out this majority of these lands are distributed to whom? The land rights are the land titles are corrupt, totally rewritten, and these all lands are transferred. And where this land go? The traditional landholders of the community still there, which is happening in front of me right now. So I just lost the train of thought. I want to add something else to come back to our film. So when I deeply dive into this community, start to live with this community, I see the intersectional layers of discrimination. The local Dalits or the lower caste communities, the people who is pretended ST, Mahanaduvar, Ramana, Namadhari Nakir, and all these communities hate undiscriminate, uh, and really treat Siddhi communities as dirt, and call them Negroes and all that kind of terms right now. So there is no solidarity. The larger level, there is solidarity or anything there. They're not part of that because they've never been in the picture. They are as a casteless, landless people. Even Dalit people have their own, as an outcast, their own uh, social position within. So these people are living in multi-layered kind of oppression. Still, it is continuing. When I am saying this right now, today, this morning, one woman committed suicide in Allapur Taluk. Her name is Lashmi Siddhi, 48 years old. Last 1 week, she didn't have any food. You just Google, probably it will pop up in your newsfeed today. And this starvation death is happening inside this forest. And this is the condition there. Right now, they're living in very semi-feudal uh, uh, level. And when I started to write this film, I was write some kind of realist, kind of straight narrative. Then I rewrote and I scrap all my writing for 2-3 years. And I come to this form. That is another reason for that. And when I have to bring this intergenerational trauma of the people, one theoretician who was my early 90s, I listened to her speeches and everything. You probably heard about her. Her name is Dr. Joyce Drew. She's an African American psychiatrist and a theoretician and sociologist. So she developed this theory of just a post-traumatic slave syndrome, PTSS. And she wrote a book about it. You can see, you get it. Dr. Joyce Drew. She was very famous African American scholar. And her book, and she was dealing, she coined out this idea. Her studies is like the same as the Frantz Fanon did the studies in Algeria, and she did a study in New York City and other American cities of modern time. Why the 70% of the black Jews are end up in incarcerated into the jails. That was why what happened to these people. And she coined out this theory. This is the real intergenerational trauma, this post-traumatic slave syndrome they are suffering from. It is kind of a muscle memory or genetic memory, which is they are getting. And I was taking that tool as a narrative tool in the film, it, in order to go back and forth to the history, to bring the colonial slavery, the cultural genocide, and these memories through this boy. So that psychiatric tool I use in the film as a narrative tool. It's not a clinical tool at all. That is one thing about this intergenerational trauma I try to depict in this film. But these particular people are not African settlers. They are trafficked. They are victims of human trafficking, and they're after the colonial slavery. When we say, "Oh, it is not just for the people, the foreigners, the Portuguese people did it, or Dutch people did it, or British people," no, this re-enslavement happened under our watch. So-called in the modern independent India is happened. It still continue. That is kind of very stark thing. I just really actually my discussion went somewhere else, but it was the background. But my film as a piece of art, nothing to do with this, is in the background. I just trying to bring the mythical elements of that community. There is nothing written about that. Only people written about them. None of the people written from them. So this film is not an authentic story of Siddhi community because I am not a Siddhi. just an elite filmmaker outsider, just to cruise through this community and looking and trying to leave them and find out uh, a story. That is my story too. I am also a diaspora person. I have also connected the diaspora experience around the world. In a way, it is my story, it's not their story at all. If I try to claim that, it is totally uh, false and foolish. And this the narratives within the community, the history about that community, how do they see themselves, to know that there is no way. Only way, just I tried to do, I just visited with my English speaking Siddhi friends, especially Mohan Siddhi, Shantaram Siddhi, and also Jairam Siddhi, Ganapati Siddhi, and Manuel Siddhi, and several these friends helped me to go to these villages and talk to the elders and how perceive themselves. When I look at the history of Karnataka and any historical document, I can grab about the existence of Siddhi community there. Only one you probably the Kannada people know the Kittur Ranis and Kittur riot or Kittur war. The British people call it riot, Kittur riot, and we people call it Kittur war. Even 1829, Kittur war, Sangoli Rayana was the commander of the Kittur Rani Shannama. And Sangoli Rayana's one of the chief uh, army guy was a Siddhi. His name was Gajavira Siddhi. That Gajavira Siddhi is coming into picture. That is the only documentation in the mainstream Karnataka history we can see. And about that Gajavira Siddhi, there is several stories within the community. Some people say the Gajavira Siddhi was arrested by the British people and sent to Kalapani, and he swim from Kalapani, come to Karwar shore one night, and he walk down to the Lapur, and in Lapur city he was get killed, and he buried inside that grotto. There is a grotto near the forest range office in Lapur right now. Some Siddhi elders show me behind that. There is under there is Gajavira Siddhi died. Some people say he was get by Portuguese and he just get tied up into a stake and burned. As one version we used in the film, uh, burned in the stake as like an inquisition mark. There's another story. This group of Brahmins capture him and put him into the Satambail. Right now, the Siddhinas temple in the Satambail is in the film also we refer that, where the Siddhinas event happening in April 4th. The sacrifice of the chickens and bakris and have the feeding ancestors ceremony, Siddhinas. And in there, he tied into a rock and the Black Panther come and eat them. That's the one story, and you can see thousands of stories like that. And this is the god Siddhinas is a person called Siddhi Inasu, and the Siddhi Inasu also have this kind of story. Same person, same historical or mythical event. If you talk to 10 people, you get 15 story about the same thing. That is the beauty of orality. At the same time, there's a pitfall of orality when the people the oral tradition. But how do you walk into this world? That was a major challenge for me. I don't speak Konkani, and these people are speaking Konkani and not Konkani. That's not Bhavan Konkani. That's not Bangalore Konkani. That is not the Konkani in Cochin that I am familiar with. This is a peculiar Konkani. Actually, it is not Konkani at all. It's a Creole. India government is not recognizing it. So we have to tag their language to nearest or processed language. The Konkani, the even proposed Konkani, the local, no, Uttara Kannada Konkani is not that Konkani, the Siddhi people speaking. That is their Creole. Most of the formerly enslaved communities all around the world uh, developed this Creole in Haitian Creole, in Brazilian Portuguese Creole, and Jamaican Patois. We know that. Sadly, these people's language is Afro Tongan Creole, which is created indigenously developed in this particular community, which slaves develop it in order to communicate within their community to confuse the masters. So that was also their function. And this language is there. And what was I was talking? Really, I lost the train of thought. This is multifaceted world and multifaceted the issues, the oppressions are happening, and this conditioning, the taming people into this so-called 2.5 millennium old caste system to integrate them to it. That was the process is still happening. My focus is on that process of re-enslavement, that cultural ensnarement, the cultural ensnaring process, at the same time, the legacy of the cultural genocide, uh, and this intergenerational trauma, capturing the intergenerational trauma of human trafficking. So I end up this kind of form because I can go back and forth in history, and also created the colonial world through the sounds. So because of the constraints of all, I'm not Jim Cameron, or I don't have a Hollywood studio support to create all this world. Otherwise, it would be something different. So we reach in this form, uh, and still there is a lot of historical, contemporary historical situations that the Siddhi people and the African diaspora, in particular, that region suffers, is untold. And but the stories and their voices are always there. It was silenced. So my urgency to tell this story, because it was silenced, and it was um, uh, uh, it is supposed to have to a space in Indian, the rainbow river of Indian culture, and the part of our the polyphonic Indian culture, and also to connect this African diaspora to the larger uh, African diaspora around the world.
Would anybody else like to contribute to what Sir said? David, would you like to speak?
It's difficult for me to comment. I watched the film immediately before this discussion, and the film affected me. And then we've had a great deal of content, so there's a lot to digest. Just an observation. As I watched the film, we saw a lot of the practices, the behavior, and I noticed similarities between people of African descent that I've seen in Cuba and also in West Africa. It's striking how so much of the culture seems to survive this cruel process of forced migration and the cultural oppression of slavery.
Khan, are you there?
I am. I think we lost the connection, but I was observing some similarities between the lives of the people of African descent that we saw in the film and what I've seen in Cuba and in West Africa.
Exactly, I agree with you, David, and I observed that in Jamaica, in Haiti, and also inserting the African gods into the colonial master's code. In Haiti, you can see the voodoo practice within the Virgin Mary's grotto. And the same thing, that process, the layers of the old is formerly enslaved communities in Africas and in Latin America and America were very similar, very close. But the Indian story, African diaspora stories of India was not uh, even recognized by academies. Very few people, very few scholars who focus on that area only studied, and we had to bring all this story to the mainstream. That is one of the thing that we all can do. I think very interesting, and I totally agree with you.
Thank you.
Anybody else would like to speak? Fabian is there.
Can I speak?
Yeah, of course. Please.
Okay. Thank you for such a nuanced and vibrant movie, sir, Jain sir.
Thank you.
The movie is so richly layered, and I found every detail like sound or cinematography or objects in each frame to be intentional. And it also deals with the triple or multiple forms of oppression of race, class in the past. And what I have to say, they're not really questions, but reflections on the issues concerning the dilemmas of two things. One is mainstreaming, and second one is like culture. Here in the movie, like culture is shown as a kind of a double-edged inheritance, one that binds, keeps communities together, gives identity, and also establishes connection with the past. And at the same time, it is the same medium that contributes to the disintegration of people. So this paradoxical nature of culture is like beautifully dealt in Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart novel also. For example, in the context of the movie, the family of Jairam is kept in a perpetual, vicious cycle of borrowing money from land owner. Bhaskar, the protagonist's father, borrows money for rituals, festivals, and marriages. Still, it's the cultural identity and its social or spiritual aspect that brings together the family and communities. The protagonist towards the end is in a trance like state when playing that instrument, Dhammam, finding meaning, connection, and identity. And the second dilemma is concerning mainstreaming. To prevent Jairama from becoming a bonded laborer, is sent to a school in Elapur. Education in this context, in the context of the movie, means that he has to enter another hegemonic structure where his past
Mhm.
identity and cultural differences are almost erased. And it's both a liberatory force and an agent of cultural erasure. So I'm interested in knowing how you, as a director, frame the last scene. Other than viewing Jairama's return to roots as an act of resistance against homogenization, or do you also see that as a kind of a moment of cultural valorization or something more ambivalent?
Thank you for that question. And you can see that the pledge in the school or the internationalism itself of uh, really forcing upon uh, the people through the schools, and also there is other hand, everybody ready to die for Bharata Mata and to groom a new kind of warriors there, where Jairam going through, and his parents also going through this kind of various cultural conditioning. The names, Jairam itself, the name itself, and the god they worship, the ritual they do, and everywhere this kind of layering of oppressive uh, um, conditioning is there. That is also all exacerbate their subservience and also um, the taming of the community, which was being forcefully done in colonial era. Now, through different apparatus. As you say, this is a double-edged sword. And as a filmmaker, uh, uh, this Dammam event of the last Dammam event is a coming of age initiation for the in the fictional space of the film for Jairam. Jairam first time actually playing the mom in the last scene. He never played before in the film. Uh, and uh, and this Dammam music, even Dammam music and their ancestor worship have their roots in Africa, uh, and these rhythms rooted from Ngoma tradition of Africa. But uh, for generations, this enslaved communities and their art are uh, used by the masters for their entertainment. It's a performative level of that. The performing for uh, still that you can see that the Dammam Siddhi groups are going playing the Dammams for the tourists in the nearby resorts. And as a performative element of it, even part of this kind of India's Republic Parade, there is Siddhi community's representation. One of the senior Siddhi, the mom singer, Lakshmi Siddhi, from Manchikiri, is a very old person, and she work in Delhi parade at one of the Republic Day parade in 80s or 90s, I think. I visited her home and she passed, and her photos there and all this laurels and all these things and memories from that parade was displayed there. Just I bring these things at mm, what culture and what identity, what they have right now, uh, which is layered and which is come up and conditioned by the various stages of oppression they went through, and the idea of the culture itself uh, is going back to the roots. That kind of things also um, in a way valorized in certain context, uh, but in this particular uh, event, Dammam event, have some uh, kind of liberative element in it, because um, there is Hirayar worship in Kannada Hindus. You can see that all communities are worshipping their forefathers. But the Sraddhas and they do the annual rituals where the Putran, that word means that that the ancestral soul is a person who is liberating it uh, from this hell called Putran, and is gonna the spirit is Trana. They do uh, to give the Mosha. That is another kind of ancestral veneration and worship. But the Bantu people have different tradition. And if every city families right now, you can see they have a Hirayara room, even though even the very poor people have it. But their worship is different. Their ancestors are just dead, uh, um, and by doing some rituals and they get a moksha or they don't get liberated to heaven or anything. They are living with them. They are the real presence of their life. And through this Kartan, the central male figure of the family became an oracle of these ancestors. And they involved in day-to-day life, even the kids' examination to the marriage, to what time you have to sow certain seeds in the certain field. And every single event of their life, these ancestors are intervening. They're exactly the traditions in Africa, in various mm, communities in Africa have the same thing. But through this kind of oppression and generational cultural genocide, still they have some snippets of that community's experience, and the elements are they're keeping, and they're very proud of them. So one is this Dammam tradition, which Hindu, Muslim, Christian, whoever they are, the Dammam is uniting them. And also when the peak of the mom playing, you can see it slip into a shamanic trance and the ancestral presence is there. This ancestral presence is there. At the same time, there's some kind of communication happened to these ancestors, which we can see throughout the communities of African diaspora in Jamaica, to North Carolina, to Brazil, or in various communities in Africa. So this relevance of that final Dammam scene is as a coming of age initiation of the maturity of this an individual who recognizing um, his cultural space, and also he got an ancestral wisdom uh, through this his visions, which is now he equipped with his new knowledge. Before he has kind of a very glorified um, memories of the cultural memory of the past, which his uncle told him, but which is shattered by his cousin, the rapper. Is totally shattered this kind of beautiful, the Bandhu chief and the seventh heaven, where the Black Panther god who did the treaty with their Bandhu chief. That kind of glorious past is one-sided inflict upon him through this enculturation within the community, the stories from the community, where his elder, his uncle telling him these things. And that stories enabled him to get an attempt to pass, to go through the ancestral realm, which is the spiritual realm in all these traditional African communities have that belief, where this music became a tool of communication and a tool of healing also. And this healing, not only the immediate maladies or immediate diseases or anything, it is kind of a healing from this kind of intergenerational wounds. And this way, in that fictional space, we place the Jairam's final play. Hello? I lost you guys.
Yes,
Hello?
yes. Yeah, there we are.
Okay.
There. Yeah, Muskan,
Yeah.
come in.
Yes, ma'am. Should I call Tarakeshwar or not?
Okay, I have nothing much to say,
Yeah, okay. Okay.
except I was enjoying the way Jayan was speaking, and the knowledge that he has about not just about the community, and also trying to place it in the context of Karnataka politics was quite interesting. Uh, but another point just I wanted to add was that many of these members of the Siddhi community are part of the film industry and also theater now. In a big way, they
Yeah.
are coming in. And not just they are filling in the gap, filling in the roles of the foreigners in the Kannada cinema industry. So because they look differently, they are drafted in and they're given roles to perform a villain role who comes from somewhere
Yes.
else. Think
And
kind of
also Karnataka police also. Just time and Karnataka police also keep arresting people, accusing them they're from Nigeria
yeah.
in Bangalore. And
Mm.
recently my friend Jichu Siddhi was 3 days in jail. I was there trying to get him bail out. And they're accusing him he's from Nigeria and
And
dealing
interestingly,
with the
there was
drug.
one mainstream Kannada movie in which a song from this community was adopted.
Yeah.
And it had no relationship with uh, the plot structure, but it was included. And interestingly, this song that was included talks about the exploitation of the local money lender.
Mhm.
In their song, it is Yellapur, but in the movie, it becomes Bangalore.
Mhm.
And the Konkani or whatever that you said, the language of the Siddhis is used in that song as it is in Kannada. So as a follow-up
Yes.
of that, because it became quite a famous, that song. Many films are trying to use their songs as part of the movies. It's very ironical.
Yeah, the Girija Siddhi was
Such a
actually
big
part of
plot
that
structure.
song.
Go ahead, Tarkeshwar. I think we've lost, he's lost connection. Yeah, Muskan, you can ask others.
Sure, ma'am. Would anybody else like to contribute? Any question, any opinion, anything?
Yeah, you can wind up if nobody is ready.
Thank you so much, sir, for your time. It means a lot. And thank you, Madhurima ma'am, for your good insights into the movie. It was great hosting for you people. And thanks from Team TFO. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for
Thank
joining.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jayan. Bye. Good night.
Thank you,
Thank
Madhurima.
you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Good night.
Thank you, Tarkeshwar. And I want to add that I watched that the notorious song they played, and which was kind
Ininga
of
Mininga
very,
Tisha.
yeah, on the YouTube.
YouTube, it is there.
Yeah, it was there. And also my friends who's involved in the song, and later it was kind of very much derogatory to Siddhi community, and there is a lot of complaint from the community for about that. But there is a lot of new. Recently, a Siddhi actor was died. You remember that few days ago. His name was like just I forget his name. His name was Keshav Siddhi or something. Prashant Siddhi and Girija and Renu and their father, who is acting in the film, he was also a senior uh, drama actor and part of the theater in Manchkiri. Parshuram Siddhi, who actually they played Things Fall Apart before part of the Ninasam, the group, and Ninasa group
Yes,
or some. Ninasam. And actually, there is a lot of artistic talents in that community, and several people working in the mainstream, yes, including Prashant Siddhi and Antonio Siddhi, and there's several others working in the mainstream Kannada movies. That's great.
And
And I
recently, one
just
of the
want,
girls got a PhD also
yeah.
in theater.
Yeah. There is in theater. Also, Girija Siddhi is the main character, female character in the film in Rhythm of Dammam. You see her, and her sister is Renu Siddhi. She's also they both are teaching in NSD campuses. One is in I think in near Hubli, and Girija is in Bangalore, and several others from that community, great artists and everything. Thank you to bring that up, Tarkesh. It's good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank
Good
you
night.
all for
Night.
joining. Good
You.
night.